right, welcome to Sports Scouts. I'm Joey Goodsir.
I'm Michael Rupp.
And we are recording this, our fourth episode, on Thursday, March 14th. Fortunately for us, we're not on the camera this week, but the reason why is because the TEDx event happened yesterday here at LFHS, so the cameras captured all the action down there at the DMT. Don't worry, this episode will still appear on YouTube, but it will not be a video version, and we'll have more video versions coming out in the future more consistently, so look forward to that. Today, we will talk NFL free agency, the college admissions scandal, Russell Westbrook, and we will also sit down with Connor Clark to preview the college basketball conference tournaments and so much more. This is a crazy, crazy week of sports news. But first, Michael will give you some scout scores.
Yeah, so a quick look back to winter sports and a shout out to the boys swimming. A few swimmers have moved on into the top 10 of all time in school swimming records, which includes Luke Lanigan, 9th in the 200 freestyle, Collins Kingsley, 10th in the 200 free, and 9th in the 500 free, and Oliver Ekintade, 4th in the 100 breaststroke. And also, John Torzian and Carlos Manetti have been named NICSA Academic All-Americans. The team has been awarded the IHSA Academic Team Award, as well as being named an NISCA All-America Academic Team. So things are finally warming up for spring sports, too. The boys' varsity track and field competed in an invitational at Playfield South and North Saturday and will be at UW Whitewater this coming Saturday at 7 o'clock. And the girls' varsity JV track and field competed at Glenbard North last Friday, and the girls' varsity team will be taking on Bradford at Carthage College at 1 o'clock. They will also be heading to Whitewater this coming Saturday morning. And the girls' badminton played Barrington yesterday afternoon. They will be up against Waukegan this afternoon in the field house. And the boys' water polo played Deerfield at home Monday evening, and they will be playing Hersey this evening at the LFHS Aquatic Center. And girls' water polo played Maine West last night, and they are up against Niles West at home this coming Wednesday, which happens to be a very busy day for Scouts Athletics. And a couple more. Girls' varsity soccer played St. Viator Tuesday afternoon at Varsity Field. They are at Carmel tonight, and boys varsity lacrosse is starting up with an invitational at New Trier this Saturday starting at noon. And finally, girls lacrosse, baseball, and softball are just around the corner, and their games scheduled on the calendar for them next week. So definitely a lot to look forward to for Scout Spring Sports. And most importantly, though, I can't go without saying, the LFHS ELS basketball team defeated New Trier 42-32 on Friday in a very exciting and well-attended contest. The undefeated team will hit the road for an away game this Friday. So definitely that's a great event, the ELS basketball game, and always a fun.
It was great. It was a great year this year for it. And then also to update on girls water polo, they lost to Maine West last night 11-5. So there's a score there.
Okay.
So yeah, thanks Michael. That was Scout Scores. And as always, if you want more on the latest in LFHS sports, check out the latest articles on the Force Scout. John Trozian and Danny Fisher have an awesome boys baseball season preview. Haley Swisher has a recap of the ELS game. It's all on theforescout.com. Take a look. If you didn't hear the sport you wanted to hear, or we screwed up somehow, or we didn't list a score that you have, make sure to send in the scores and informative news to sportscoutspodcast@gmail.com in the future so Michael can give it a shout out. So let's move on to national sports with Show Me What You Got. And we'll start, as always, with my headline today. And the first thing I'd like to open with is kind of an update on last week, as I'm kind of going to step back from drawing huge conclusions on the Hawks season this year. The Chicago Blackhawks have been on kind of a positive swing lately and have moved out of depressing, kind of turning away from being potential wildcard teams. And they are number 5 right now in the standings, in the wildcard standings, and they are only a few points out of the race right now. They're only 4 points back from the Arizona Coyotes, which are the second Western Conference wildcard team. So it's become a race all of a sudden again. They had a crazy, awesome performance against the Toronto Maple Leafs last night, and we're just going to have to see what happens. As we talked about on the show and we analyzed more deeply a couple episodes back, this is not like your normal good Hawks team where they're consistently good. This is a team that's going to be pretty pretty crazy back and forth and unpredictable. So I guess that's kind of what's fun about this season. So we'll have to see how this regular season closes out, and hopefully maybe we'll start being able to talk playoffs in the next couple months.
How many games or how many points back are they from?
They are 4 back from the wild
back.
card
You
spot.
said okay.
Yeah. So now it's in the conversation again. So
yes, they've been in and out. So hopefully they can.
So the Coyotes, Wild, and Avalanche have to keep losing and allow them to keep moving up.
Right.
As well as they obviously have to take care of their own business. But yeah, so that's my headline today.
Yeah. So mine is we saw yesterday with the Chicago White Sox announcing that Eloy Jimenez, one of the game's top prospects. Of course, he was in the Jose Quintana trade when the White Sox traded him to the Cubs for Eloy and other prospects like pitcher Dylan Cease, the former Cubs pitcher, who's one of the top now in the game and in the White Sox system. But what I wanted to talk about was we've seen that the White Sox called Eloy down the AAA just because they didn't do this because he wasn't ready for the show or anything. They did this so they can gain an extra year of control of the player. So by not starting that service time clock, this prevents Eloy from a loss of money, actually. So because he'll be a year older than once he can hit free agency. So this has been a problem. We saw this with Chris Bryant back in 2015 when he hit 9 home runs, hit over 400 in spring training, but the Cubs still had to call him down for a couple of weeks before they called him up. I believe it was like April 17th or whatever the day was. But they do this because if they have a player needs 172 days in a season of what is called service time, but if they have 171, this doesn't count for a full season. So they can manipulate these rules so they can get an extra year of control of the player, and they don't have to start his major league clock yet, which is kind of garbage. I think this has been a problem for quite a while, and it's kind of like the NFL franchise tag where teams now can prevent other teams from bidding on their own players, and this kind of system needs to be reworked now in the next collective bargaining agreement once it expires in Major League Baseball between the MLB Players Association and ownership and executives. So this is a big issue that's been around for quite a while, and there's been a lot of discontent towards it. And it's going to be I'm sure it will be addressed, but it just kind of hurts to see that some of the game's brightest stars are going to be in the minor leagues for a couple of weeks when they should be up on the team. And,
for sure.
On opening day. So.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely agree with that. There's definitely, just in general, some MLB issues that need to be reworked when it comes to the next collective bargaining agreement.
Right.
Once that comes up. There's some things that need to be tweaked just a little bit.
I saw last night, though, that they did already decide that there's going to the MLBPA and the ownership decided that they are going to have like a 3-batter limit for relievers. So I'm glad to hear about that. I think we talked about that last week. To have that limit in there, which is good because you just can't have a reliever come in, face a batter, and have him leave. So that's a good addition, and I'm happy to see that.
Yeah, that's kind of nice for sure. So that is Show Me What You've Got. Now it's time to move on to our news. And as I said, it's a big day of news. So here we go. Our first story, Michael, as you know, the NFL free agency fireworks kind of period has begun. And most likely the biggest headline thus far is the Cleveland Browns acquiring wide receiver Odell Beckham Jr., sending the 17th overall and the second, third-round picks in the 2019 NFL Draft, as well as safety Jabril Peppers to the New York Giants. So, Michael, what's your reaction to such a groundbreaking trade here?
I'm going to write an article on this coming up about the NFL free agency, the recap, and the whole recap of everything that happened. But definitely this trade here, I don't understand this one bit at all for the New York Giants. Because Odell is one of the game's biggest stars. Being in New York, so much attention is drawn to him all the time, and he's rightfully so due to how well he's played for the Giants in the years he's been there. But to say that it's an absolute steal for the Browns that they can get a player who's 26 years old, right in his prime, Odell Beckham, just for a first-round pick and a third-round pick. That they have 2 third rounds too, and they can just give away a third round, and they give away Jabril Peppers. If I was a team that was in that position, I'd be calling the phone right away. I would say, how can I get this deal done? And that's what the Browns did, and they will not be disappointed at all to give up one first-round pick to get a player like Odell Beckham Jr. And I don't understand what the Giants are doing at all. You having the 6th overall pick this year's draft, you probably could have got like a Dwayne Haskins or a quarterback, whoever, the 2 third quarterback on the board, to pair up with a Saquon Barkley at running back who you took the last year, and Odell Beckham and a Sterling Shepard on the other side. They have a lot of talent on this offense already. Of course, the line's a problem for them. It's been a problem, but they're going to address that, and they already have a little bit. But I don't understand it at all, and I don't think that you can get anything in return for kind of caliber like Odell Beckham Jr.
Yeah, for sure. If I'm a Browns fan, I'd be super excited right now. It's a great trade that they just picked up.
Steal.
Huge steal. And also, being a Michigan fan, I'm happy that Jabril Peppers can get out of the state of Ohio. And hopefully, being on the Giants, he has more of an opportunity to be as explosive as I remember him being a couple years back in college.
Yeah, he's really improved too since his rookie year.
Yeah, for sure. He's made his mark known, but
yeah.
now once he gets out of Cleveland here, it'll be really cool to see what happens. So yeah, moving on to our next story.
It's another big story coming out of the NBA this week as Russell Westbrook once again had interaction with fans at a Utah Jazz game. So comments made by a fan at the arena in Salt Lake City crossed a line for Westbrook, and he stood unafraid to defend himself. The fan was banned from the arena events, including Jazz games, for life, and Russell Westbrook was fined $25,000, which is being paid right now in fan donations to the Human Rights Campaign Foundation. So, Joey, what do you make of all this?
Yeah, so this is a kind of a crazy story. So there's multiple sides to this whole thing, and basically the Russell Westbrook side of things was this fan stepped over a line, most especially he stepped over a racial line, and the fan said that he didn't do that, and that it was just usual trash talking, and it led to that reaction, which was seen on camera. The problem is, of course, only the reaction was really caught on camera of Russell Westbrook, where he kind of stood and defended himself verbally. But I think that it's, things have been said in the past to build up this reputation that we legitimately know have stepped over the line every once in a while. So there's definitely a need for improvement, especially in Utah, and improvement in fan-player interaction, and knowing when, trash talking, having an intimate environment, which is really cool. In Utah, they have such a small, old arena where that happens. But this specific situation is murky too, so that does need to be considered. So in the future here, I think the thing that should be the priority, fans should be able to hold each other accountable for future situations, and the NBA better be fair about this. And I think so far they've handled it pretty properly. And I hope that when they defend players in this situation, which they needed to, this was a situation where they needed to defend Russell Westbrook. I just hope that this doesn't give them grounds for in the future to kind of overstep their authority toward fans, where all of a sudden there's going to be this thing where trash talking of the normal variety rather than the variety that we saw against Russell Westbrook will be frowned upon, and players will just be upset, vocally about all that. So, there's a whole thing about James Dolan, the owner of the Knicks, who was walking out of a game, and some guy, this happened this week, some guy yelled sell the team at him, which if you know anything about the New York Knicks, it makes a lot of sense. But basically his response was like, okay, like he's like, you want me to sell the team? He's like, that's just my opinion. The response was like, oh, this is not your opinion, and James Dolan basically had security detain this guy. So and
he can't get back in the arena ever again.
Right. So there's
ridiculous.
There's these situations like this. So I just hope that this serious situation with Russell Westbrook is taken into account. We move forward, and things get better.
Just a bad look. Yeah.
Yeah, but the NBA just doesn't go too far here, and basically allow for fan interaction that makes sports so enjoyable from the fan perspective go away. So yeah, those are all my thoughts on that situation. So this is a crazy week in sports and in news, obviously, and one of those reasons is the absolute bombshell of a college admissions scandal dominating the news this week. And this is the biggest cheating scandal ever in the United States. There were 50 people involved and many, many more potentially in a scheme to cheat on standardized tests and bribe college coaches and school officials, either one of the two. And with the strategy of fake athletic credentials, the story really permeates the sports world, especially that of college coaches. Lots of college coaches are involved. We're probably going to find out about more in the future. So, Michael, how much do you think this changes college sports, and how deep do you think this case ends up going?
Well, we've heard right now some big names such as like Full House star Lori Loughlin, who definitely people, once they heard like names like hers, and there's definitely a lot of other big names, and there's apparently more to come. Once you hear like names like those, there's definitely going to be a lot of media attention, and rightfully so, due to how big of a bombshell this report, and it's very extensive, and there's a lot more to it. But to relate this to college sports, I mean, it just shows, it's really sad, to be honest, that you have kids that, I mean, it just puts a bad light for just any college kid, I think, that is trying to get an education. They work hard in high school. Then you have people that are much wealthier, I guess, and they put them in a different, just in a different category, and they can get into schools that they shouldn't be getting into, but money just can buy them in, and that's just damaging to college sports too. That these coaches are taking bribes from these wealthy parents to have their son or daughter come to the school, and just kind of, it's just, these payments are just ridiculous that these kids can go there and they're put under, like, it's just a fake athletic credentials, which makes no sense that the coaches would even think to allow that and are bribed to do this, to get just some wealthy son or daughter of a parent to go to some top tier university in the country. And it's sad because these college coaches are now gonna be, some of these really good college coaches that are not involved in this are just going to be really very scrutinized now, and under a lot of scrutiny in the coming days. And it's just kind of sad that they shouldn't have to be, and they are now. And it's just because of some of these coaches that are not living up to the kind of character that they are expected to be at a university.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely agree on all that. We'll see how that turns out in the future here, because it seems to only be getting bigger and bigger as far as the story goes. So, yeah, that's our news. It's time for this week's Let's Sit Down segment. This week, as we said, we sat down with Connor Clark, where we talked college basketball conference tournaments. We previewed that. That's kind of the biggest preview story this week. And it was recorded on Tuesday, so this is being recorded on Thursday, so there's kind of a time difference there, but we hope you enjoy it. Hello and welcome to our Connor Clark edition of our Let's Sit Down interview segment here of our show. And this week, obviously, the main focus is the college basketball conference tournaments rolling into Selection Sunday. And then, of course, March Madness coming up next week and, going all the way through spring break as always. But, it's really coming down to that time of year. So here's kind of what's going on right now. So as far as conference tournament champions that are already crowned right now, we got Liberty out of the Atlantic Sun, Gardner-Webb out of the Big South, Iona out of the Metro Atlantic Conference, the MAAC, Bradley out of the Missouri Valley, Murray State out of the Ohio Valley Conference, and Wofford out of the Southern Conference. And then this week, the championship games that are kind of going on during the week, most notably Gonzaga and St. Mary's at the West Coast Conference Championship, North Dakota State and Nebraska Omaha at the Summit League, St. Francis Fairleigh Dickinson at the Northeast Conference, Wright State, North Kentucky at the Horizon League, Hofstra Northeastern at the Colonial Athletic Association, that conference out in the East, Colgate and Bucknell in the Patriot League. And then through this weekend, outside of the conferences we'll be covering today, we have the WAC, the SWAC, the Sun Belt, the Southland, Mountain West, MEAC, MAC, the MAC, Conference USA, Big West, AAC, America East, Atlantic 10. But yeah, lots of basketball obviously going on this week. Really kind of setting up the automatic kind of 32 teams going in to the 68 team field. But yeah, so we're here today, and our guest is, as I said earlier, Connor Clark. So thank you for joining us, C-Boy.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Number 2.
Yeah. So So Connor here, he actually wrote the conference championship tournament preview on the Forest Scout, and he covered a variety of, and the majority of the conferences that we're gonna cover today. So just kind of looking through those, and so we're gonna kind of really hit on all the football Power 5 conferences in addition to the Big East. Obviously, they're a big basketball conference, so we'll go through all those. But yeah, so I guess we'll just kind of get started here with the Pac-12. So, Michael, you're here on the show too. So,
yeah, we got to make sure to get Connor in on the discussion the other day, because a lot of big news though, and throughout the sports, but definitely we got to talk college basketball in this segment for sure.
Yeah, it's a big week for it. So yeah, we're starting here in the Pac-12, first round here.
Mm-hmm.
We're recording this on Tuesday just for reference. The first round's going to be tomorrow for a lot of these tournaments, and then rolling into Sunday.
So the ACC starting today, though.
Yeah, the ACC is starting today. There's some there's a
tomorrow.
little bit of a variety of formats, but lots of them are either starting tomorrow or today.
Yeah, either way, the championship's either Saturday or Sunday for these big schools. So, and of course, selection Sunday, later in the afternoon Sunday. So it'll be
as always
a lot of
prime
basketball.
Time.
Yeah.
Waiting for someone to leak the bracket on Sunday, as always. But yeah.
But who do you guys think? I guess we start with Connor. Who do you think is the team to watch in the Pac-12? Because they really haven't had the season that they've hoped for.
Yeah, for sure.
The Pac-12.
Yeah, the Pac-12 certainly has been down throughout the entire season. Everybody's gonna pick Washington as the favorite, and understandably so. They're 24-7. But I'm gonna go with Arizona State. That's what I picked on my article as well.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
I think they just have the best chance. They may not be in first, but we saw them beat Kansas early in the season when they were ranked number 1 at home. They got some quality players, and I really like their coach, Bob Hurley. I really like their coach. So I think they do have the talent and the smarts to get all the way to that final and get an automatic bid into the NCAA tournament.
I mean, yeah, I definitely agree with that, considering the kind of the field that they're coming out of on that side of the bracket. They're the number 2 spot in the Pac-12 tournament this week. Yeah, I mean, not a huge fan of Bobby Hurley as a player, but he's been a pretty successful coach. He's made his presence in March. So, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised to see Arizona State come out of the Pac-12.
Yeah, probably the Pac-12 has they have 3 teams right now. Of course, they're going to get the auto bid, whoever wins the Pac-12. But then there's 2 other bubble teams, Arizona State, and then, of course, Washington, the 1 seed. So that'll be interesting to see if a Arizona State or if an Arizona State or even Utah, if they could pull it out, that would be good for the Pac-12, I think, too, because Washington is probably already in the tournament. So get another team, another bubble team, an auto bid, get them in the tournament. So that would be good for the conference if they could possibly get 2 teams instead of just the 1, which would be Washington if they were to win.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so moving into the next conference tournament here, we got the SEC tournament, and that one will also start tomorrow, and that'll move into Sunday as opposed to Saturday, which is when the Pac-12 tournament ends. Yeah, so Connor, what are your thoughts on this one?
I think this one should be really good. I think the SEC is more known for football conference, obviously, but I think they're turning into more of a basketball conference now, because you got teams like LSU, Tennessee, Kentucky, and then you got teams like Mississippi State who are good, but they're not ranked. They have more than 20 wins, and it's just an all-around competitive conference. I'm going to have to pick and it pains me to say this, but the Kentucky Wildcats. I think they're just – Calipari is just – he's been there and done that. It's kind of like Bill Belichick almost in the SEC. He's been there, done that. He knows how to get there, and obviously they're going to make the tournament regardless, but to have a SEC championship under their belt because they didn't win it in the regular season, which is kind of abnormal, they're definitely going to be hunting for that postseason SEC championship.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the SEC has had its basketball presence mainly through Kentucky historically. And I think that it's an exciting year for the SEC in the respect that it's starting to round out more as a basketball conference, and we have more competition here. I mean, I would definitely understand the pick for Kentucky, and I think that's most likely. But I think that we have a really, really dangerous, there's a bunch of great teams here, and we have a really dangerous LSU team coming into the SEC at number 1. I think that They might not come out of this week, but in the future here in the NCAA tournament, depending on where they are, I mean, definitely look out for them because they're going to be a dangerous, unexpected team, at least in my opinion. So yeah, it's kind of an exciting year of the SEC to see some of these teams step into the conversation.
Yeah, it's been interesting to see too how Will Wade has built up the LSU program, but of course he's suspended now, which, of course, if people don't know, is he was found possibly guilty of paying. He's found in that investigation with a lot of other college coaches of paying recruits to get him to come to their school. And of course, this is a big story coming now, especially how he's built up this LSU program to be number 1 in the SEC this season. So this will be definitely a big storyline to see if that's a distraction towards his players and the whole basketball program. But definitely a lot of talent on that team, and they can compete with anyone in this conference.
Sounds good. All right, let's keep rolling into the Big 12 here in an interesting tournament that's really setting up after the longtime regular season championship win streak for Kansas came to an end at 14 this year. They're the 3 spot coming into this tournament for the first time in a very long time. So it's kind of an interesting year for the Big 12. But yeah, so Connor, go ahead.
Yeah, this tournament's really interesting looking at the bracket here because you got Kansas. They're a 3 seed this year. They're not 14-year streak of winning has come to an end of the regular season championship. So this is going to be a really, really good tournament, I think, because you got Kansas State at number 1, Texas Tech, who's always a really good team, at number 2. And then Kansas has got a tough opening round game against Texas as well, because Texas, I feel like, is a little bit slept on because they had a nice win over North Carolina earlier in the season. They've kind of fallen off since then, but they're still fighting for their lives. And they got Baylor and Iowa State. So this is a really, really tough pick. But I'm going to have to go with the Texas Tech Red Raiders, I believe is their mascot.
You're correct.
Okay. Yeah. Just want to make sure. I knew it was something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go with Texas Tech on this one. I think they just have the talent. Kansas is a little bit of a down year. They're still in the top 25, but it's not the Kansas we're used to seeing. Kansas State's kind of new to the spotlight, obviously, because of the 14-year streak Kansas has been going on with the regular season championship. So I'm going to go with Texas Tech here. I just think they have a really solid program, and I think they can get it done.
Yeah, also, I wanted to chime in about Kansas State, too. Of course, they're the 1 seed this year, and Bruce Weber, their head coach, has done a phenomenal job to get this program. After losing their first 2 games in conference play against Texas and Texas Tech, they've won 14 out of 16 of their last Big 12 games. So they're definitely riding a major hot streak going into this tournament, and they're definitely a team to be reckoned with, being in the 1 seed. But the only problem is they might be losing one of their better players, Dean Wade, and he's questionable with discomfort in his foot for the whole tournament, and he missed last year's tournament too, I believe, with the same or I'm not sure if it was the same injury or not, but I know he was injured during the Big 12 tournament last year. So definitely he'll be a big loss if he doesn't suit up. But either way, they have the talent to still knock off a Texas Tech or a Texas.
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking into this, if you're looking into this week as far as just by itself, kind of everything aside, if you want to look for the most exciting conference tournament, this might be it, considering all the 1-1 results we've seen from the series between all these teams this year in the Big 12. So,
yeah, like 1 through 5, anyone's got a chance. It looks like even like Iowa State's number 5, and they've been ranked like in the top 15 this year. So
they've been able to make their mark nationally, and so yeah, it'll be. I think it'll probably be the most interesting tournament to watch from that perspective for sure. So moving into the Big East, obviously Villanova coming out number 1 in the conference again this year, after winning a national championship last year, and they're going into March to defend their championship this year. Yep. So Connor, what are your thoughts on the Big East?
This tournament is wide open. 1 through 10, anybody has a chance to win this game. Even DePaul. Even DePaul at number 10. Yeah. I picked St. John's to win this one because my 2 main reasons are they're much improved from last year. Shamori Pons has been very good this season, and they're at MSG, which is basically their home stadium. So I've watched some St. John's Red Storm games there over the past year, and when they're playing good, I mean, that place gets really, really crowded with a bunch of St. John fans. So I think it'll be a really tough place for opposing teams to play. Obviously, it's a Big East tournament, so it won't be as one-sided, but I think St. John's has a really legitimate chance to win this tournament and make it back to March.
I am not as bold. St. John's, they could very well end up. Marquette's had trouble this last month, too, and they would be facing up against them in the quarterfinal game.
Yeah, it might be nice timing for them, for sure.
Yeah, because Marquette's really been slipping as of late. But I think, I don't know. I've been kind of torn on who to really pick in this one. St. John's, who knows? They could end up keep going all the way up to the semifinals or the finals. But I'm still going to take Villanova just because where they've been, their coaching staff, they have a lot of they still have some players from last year's championship team, and they're just a really well-rounded team with a great coach who's won now 2 national championships at Villanova, and it just seems like with Marquette, the way I was going to pick Marquette if they would have won just to Georgetown on Saturday, but the way they've been slipping as of late, it's just been kind of concerning for them as they've let a lot of games late in the fourth quarter within 2 minutes just slip away from them, and they have not come up with big shots, especially Marcus Howard, as he's been off, and they need him now.
Yep, for sure. Definitely agree that, even though there's a lot of room for some crazy things to happen.
Look out for Seton Hall as well.
Them too. They had a big
for
one
sure.
too.
Powell's just been taking that team into his own hands. Well,
Yeah,
that's
for
a
sure.
good 3-6 matchup. Seton Hall versus Georgetown, especially Georgetown after that big win. So there's a lot of talent there.
That team always seems
play.
to shape up by March too. Just Seton Hall in general, for sure.
That's for sure.
Yeah. Moving into the ACC conference tournament here. And
this is another good one too.
This is another good
All
one.
of them are good.
There's a lot of, I don't know. I feel like I've been saying this almost every year recently, but this year especially, there's just been a lot of just good teams across college basketball, but not a lot of just crazy dominant teams.
Mm-hmm.
So it leads to some good conference tournaments this week. So, yeah, the ACC definitely is no exception to that.
Yeah, the ACC is just year in and year out. It is, in my opinion, the best basketball conference in the country. Obviously, this year you have Duke. Zion's still down, but you got Virginia. You got North Carolina, who's been playing great as of late. You got Florida State. They're a team that can be on the rides whenever they want to. So you got a lot of good teams in this bracket. And it's a 15-team tournament, so this is a huge tournament. So there's going to be upsets, you know that for sure, because you have Notre Dame. Like, even though they're in last, they've had a tough year. They could pull off some upsets. But considering how big this tournament is, there's definitely going to be a couple of them in there. With saying that, I'm going to go the opposite direction. Well, you could view this as an upset maybe. But I'm going to pick the Virginia Cavaliers. I think when they shoot the 3-ball as well as they did, especially against Syracuse the other week, they are one of the best teams in the country, and their defense is just almost nearly impossible to get around. So I'm going to pick them to win the ACC tournament.
Yeah, I'm going to take North Carolina. But also, just to allude to your point, Zion will be back Thursday, they believe. So that'll be interesting. A big storyline for sure.
Coach K's been saying for a while.
Yeah, so
ACC tournament.
And then
we'll see what
him.
happens.
It looks, they're definitely going to need
sure.
him. But I'm picking North Carolina just the way they've been playing as of late. Of course, the big win on Saturday night against Duke. But of course, it was a Zion-less team. But still, there's possibly 3 other first-round players on that roster. And the way Kobe White has been playing, he's probably making like the strongest case to be like the best freshman like in the country right now, or the best guard in the country. And he's really he's took off this last month. And Luke May, of course, has been solid, and Cameron Johnson too. So they have a lot of talent like every year. And this is really just a great conference, and it's really up to probably Virginia, North Carolina, or Duke, and it's kind of a toss-up. So I'm just gonna pick North Carolina.
Yeah, it'll be an interesting storyline to see how Zion gets adjusted to being back in the game. It's just a weird time to come back from injury. Just there's really no good time to bring him back,
Right.
Which is what's kind of concerning. But if there's any, if there's any good time at this point, I guess it's the first round of the conference tournament for a Duke team that's they're already looking into this tournament as far as later on here. But I think I definitely agree that Virginia is probably going to end up coming out of this conference tournament, and they're going to have a great draw in March Madness, and we're going to be sitting here like, should we trust them again this year? And that conversation will begin. And I don't know how things are going to really work out for them, and if they'll do that well in the NCAA tournament. But I can definitely see them coming out of the ACC as tournament champions again. So last but not least here, moving into the Big Ten tournament. Reason why we listed this last was for a couple reasons. First of all, it is taking place at the United Center in Chicago this year, which is a fun place to have it for sure. Definitely it floats around the Midwest most of the time in Indianapolis, but this year it's in Chicago, which is always enjoyable. And the Big Ten has had a lot of contenders this year and is gonna probably have a very, very big presence.
Especially when Purdue fans and Wisconsin fans, they always show up
for
big
sure.
Numbers. Michigan too.
Yeah. And when the 68 team field is going to be revealed here, there's going to be a lot of Big Ten presence. So a lot of that will be affected by this tournament. So Connor, what are your thoughts on the Big Ten?
Yeah, kind of like the Big East one. Despite the Big Ten being a really, really good conference this year, I still think this one is kind of wide open. I mean, you got a bunch of teams in here that could win. You got Purdue, Michigan State, Wisconsin, Maryland, Iowa, Minnesota, and Ohio State. They could all capture the Big Ten postseason title. I'm going to go with the Purdue Boilermakers. I had the privilege of seeing them last Saturday play, and because they have a great combination of size, defense, and three-point shooting. And when they have that defense going and they shoot the three well, I think they can play with anybody in the entire country. I think they're that good. That, in my opinion, may seem outlandish to a lot of people, but I think Purdue's kind of overlooked a little bit. But I think
would agree with that.
Yeah. I think they're an outstanding basketball team, and I think they can win this tournament.
Yeah, I actually agree with you. I think Purdue, I think they're overlooked, way overlooked. I think it's probably because they started off the season 6-5, and they've lost like 4 starters from last year, and I believe it was like over like 5,000 points in total. So definitely it's kind of you kind of understand why they were overlooked due to the inexperience, I guess, from the majority of their starters. But yeah, I think they've really, like, the combination of size, ability to score, and defense, they've really made themselves a complete team, and they really have a great shot. But it's also another one that's really wide open, and it's kind of unlike other years, like where you usually have one team in each conference that you think, okay, they're going to run away. But this year it's just been wide open, usually in each conference between like a 1 and a 4 seed. So it definitely will be interesting. And I'll be there either Friday or Saturday, so that'll be fun to watch.
I'm hoping to get myself out there too.
Yeah, I'll be there for
the first time like
Saturday.
in 4 years, I think it's been at the UC.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's been a while for
definitely
sure. So I definitely
go.
want to get out there. There's going to be a lot of Michigan fans out there, so I might as well join the party. But
and then you got my
they're out there.
weak Northwestern.
And maybe they can upset who are they? Hey, Illinois, right? So today or tomorrow? Right?
Tomorrow night.
This starts tomorrow. Yeah, it starts tomorrow.
At 9,
yeah, with Illinois and Northwestern,
okay.
and a fun rivalry game to get it started. And then Rutgers, Nebraska, and Rutgers are at this point celebrating the fact that they're not last, so that's fun. But yeah, I mean, Michigan's in it to potentially win their 3rd Big Ten tournament in a row. It's been a weird year for them because B-line teams aren't typically so good at the beginning of the year, and that's not the kind of season storyline that they follow. And here, so now they're kind of going into the end of the season, and they had a shooting slump, which even though their defense is pretty solid, that's not that helpful for them. So going in, it'll be interesting. I think Purdue is definitely a sleeper team and will do considerably well. But I do think that the factor that is Mackey Arena should be considered. That's a great place for them to play. It's really, really tough for a team that's not Purdue to play there. So I think that that's why they come out on top so often in the regular season Big Ten. I don't know if that translates so often into the tournament. So I don't know if I'd pick Purdue to come out on top here. But there'll be some unexpected things going on in the first couple of days. But by the time we get to the weekend, I think Michigan State painfully will end up being the Big Ten tournament champions and really kind of amp up the March Izzo hype for the NCAA tournament. But I hope I head out there and I'm wrong this weekend. So we'll see what happens.
I mean, to your point, West Lafayette's not that far of a drive.
That is true. There will be a Purdue fan presence for
Yeah.
sure. I mean, I think
They show up anywhere.
Yeah, they do.
They do. You know,
Be in Maryland too. You probably see still see some
It's
Purdue
ridiculous.
I mean,
It's
you know,
insane.
there's a lot of teams here that have good Chicago
Yeah.
fan bases.
All the alumni.
Yeah, you know, Michigan's pretty large. Purdue will show up. Wisconsin will definitely show up.
Oh yeah.
Michigan State will probably show up, especially
Nebraska will show up,
considering the
too.
power of their team. Nebraska, Maryland. I mean,
Yeah,
there's
this whole team, they're really their
there's
fans
so
are
many
very
teams.
supportive of their
and
alumni. So
that's so many teams down the list, and we didn't even get to Northwestern, and obviously there'll be Northwestern
Yeah,
fans
right.
there.
I mean, maybe.
Maybe one. We know at least one. We have one right here.
Yeah, I'll be here. I won't be going out to MSG to support the other team in
DePaul.
DePaul. I
Who
mean,
knows?
Yeah.
They could-
they're
St. John's
playing.
are
They're
coming.
playing St. John's in the first round too, but I picked St. John's.
That is
really
they said
upset
it's a
with
wide
the
open
upset.
field, so hey.
Yeah.
You never
Yeah.
know. Struce. It's gonna be. It could be his last game on
I know. I don't want to think about
tomorrow
that at
night.
this point.
Yeah, that could be. I know he's had a great career though at DePaul since he's been there. But yeah, hopefully they can keep. I mean, maybe you'd be happy if they would upset your the champion you picked.
I'd much rather take
You'd
a
rather take-
DePaul win over my prediction being right.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's our week of conference tournaments here. It's going to be an exciting week, and a lot of wide open tournaments, as we said, going into Selection Sunday. And then next week, we're really, really excited, especially just all across the Four Scout. We're doing a lot of things for March Madness, and on here we're going to have a bunch of extra mini episodes filling out brackets with a bunch of people. So we look forward to that. As we've been saying in the past, email us at sportscoutspodcast@gmail.com. If you want to make an appearance on the show to talk brackets. I mean, that goes from anybody who goes down the analytics, or people who go with their teams with their favorite colors. As I've always said, we're here for everybody who loves filling out brackets, and we want to make those fun shows. So we look forward to the results this week and can't wait for next week. So Connor, thanks for being on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, and so we'll see you guys next week. All right, welcome back. It's time for They Don't Scout Like This. And our They Don't Scout Like This topic is basically a trend that at least I've noticed recently, where basically across sports there's been a larger kind of player autonomy as far as just their independence and ability to make their own decisions. And really kind of is it good in some aspects, or is it too much in others? Because we have these situations like Antonio Brown obviously being shopped in his trade, and him having very, very explicit preferences over which team he goes to. We have Bryce Harper recruiting Mike Trout. We have the trend of NBA super teams. So there's kind of this general sports development here, where lots of players are really kind of being able to make their own decisions, and it's creating a really, really different league dynamic. So, Michael, what are your thoughts on this kind of trend?
I mean, I think there's pros and cons towards this. That the fan base of where they are wanting to go can be really generated, I guess, very energized, I guess, and I think it's good for them, I guess, that they can get kind of these top tier players, and they can really rally around this. That, hey, look, we can get one of these better players in any league, and you should come here, and they can reach out to them, and they can really feel good about where they are as an organization. But at the same time, I think giving players too much of a say can be toxic, like we saw with Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell, that where they just couldn't keep their mouths shut throughout the season. Like Antonio Brown, he didn't even play in the last game of the year because he was since he just couldn't be quiet about possible free agent destinations and where he wanted to go outside of Pittsburgh. So this can be this can disrupt a locker room, definitely, and these players can lose. These locker rooms can lose trust in the player that wants to leave, and if you have a player like Antonio Brown or a Bryce Harper in baseball, they can, being at the top of the game, being the top of their game, they can have a say in this. And not all players can do this, but being where they are, they can, and this can put a bad light, I think, on the rest of the locker room, and they can kind of cause a lot of turmoil within the locker room. So I don't think it's really the best light to put their team in and their ownership.
Yeah, I think that, the increase in player independence as far as like financially and contractually, as we talked about like earlier on the show, for example, I think that increase is positive, and I think that players should be able to have more say. They should not be, kind of restricted by their owners. I think that when it comes to a need to be more restrictive toward players, it's a lot about, player preferences as far as what team they're going to, that type of thing, creating that kind of recruiting and imbalance that, the NBA, that has absolutely plagued the NBA.
Right.
And that, results in, an absolutely completely boring like regular season and things like that.
Yeah.
And, I think hopefully it'll develop in a positive way, and I think it's, if people are thinking that can't have success if you're not building super teams like that, I mean, I would just look at the NHL right now. The Tampa Bay Lightning are, currently, like, as we said, there's the Lightning, there's everybody else in the NHL right now, but they're currently, heading toward lots of season records.
Yeah.
And they have a couple stars on their team, like, Steven Stamkos, Tyler Johnson, that type of thing. But, like, they don't have an extreme amount of star power, but they're putting up Golden State Warriors-like numbers, even though they're not, star-wise the Golden State Warriors. Look at the Patriots, too. They're very, very cold about the way that they treat players, but it's for the greater good because they end up winning.
Yeah.
So
I'm all about players.
I think I'm all about balance as far as teams go, and I'm all about players in terms of money. So I think that's where there's kind of the pros and cons.
I was going to say that, too. Yeah, I'm all about players getting their contract, providing for their family, and setting them up with success within their family. But I just think that the right time to do this is once you become a free agent, and it's not to start talking about this once you're still under contract with a team, just out of respect for your the rest of your teammates and the organization as a whole. So I think if players like we saw with Antonio and others, this definitely, I think they just agencies need to tell them, like, it's not the best look for your, I guess, for the whole person, I guess, and the owner and the whole brand of the player, to do something like this. And so this is definitely we saw like how it plagued the NBA, like you said, but this is definitely a new trend in professional sports, and it's going to be interesting to see if this continues. Yeah,
for sure. I mean, it'll be very, very interesting. So we'll have to see how it changes. So we are going to move on to your scouting. Make sure to, in the future, as always, we're trying to grow this segment of the show, so make sure to send in your questions, as always, for next week at 224-544-9330, 224-544-9330. Make sure you send in your questions to us. It's been a great segment. There's been lots of awesome, hilarious questions, too, and we got plenty more on the show today. We have 3 questions, so we'll get into them right now.
Hey guys, big fan. I'd just like to know your guys' opinions on the upcoming Chicago Dogs season and their huge rivalry with the Sioux City Explorers, or Sioux Falls Explorers. How you think the Dogs will do this year and how their starting rotation will look. Thanks, guys.
So this has been an urgent question. We've had this one for a while, and I've been waiting to get to it. But we got some Chicago Dogs fans listening to this show, and it's exciting. I mean, relatively new team, minor league baseball team out right here in Rosemont. Super excited to see this team build a history here and have some exciting seasons going forward. So it'll be fun once the season gets rolling here.
Yeah, I mean, just baseball in general. I mean, it's fun. I mean, once they start, I believe they start in mid-May. I believe it is.
Yeah, that's what I was just looking at. That it's mid-May.
So definitely. I mean, baseball around Chicago area is always fun around the summertime. So whether it's the Cubs, White Sox, or even the Dogs, I mean, it's fun to watch any baseball. And as Peters has an obsession for the Chicago
he
Dogs.
Does. That's why I wanted to get it on.
And it's pretty hilarious. But I mean, Butch Hobson, too, is one of the manager of the Dogs, and he definitely is a pro Butch Hobson kind of person. So it's very funny to see.
All right, we're gonna move into our next question.
Hey Joey, this is
AJ Shaw from the Bear Down Weekly podcast. My question for you today is, what are your thoughts on the Bears' safety situation in free agency? Do you think they should go after Eric Berry or HaHa Clinton-Dix? Hopefully this helps out your show. Have a great day, and Bear Down.
So I just want to mention real quick before we get into this question, and I believe, Michael, you probably have an answer. Yeah, Michael was a guest on this week's Bear Down Weekly podcast. The Bear Down Weekly podcast is coming back, so super exciting about that. They're kind of covering all the NFL trade stuff. So if you want to hear more about this topic, make sure to check that out. And Michael's on the show, so that's exciting. And, you know, of course, they always do a great job. And we've had AJ on the show. So, yeah, as far as Bear safeties, Michael, what are you thinking here?
Yeah, so of course we've seen that Adrian Amos did not re-sign with the team, and now he signed a 4-year deal, $37 million, I believe, with the Green Bay Packers, our biggest rival, which was kind of disappointing to see him out of all teams go there. But respect his decision, and best of luck for him in Green Bay. But also now the Bears have to move on from this, and we've also seen that Bryce Callahan, who is a nickel corner for the Chicago Bears this last season, probably will not be back with the team. It's not official yet. He has not signed with anyone else, but the Bears are moving in a direction that they won't re-sign him. But as of right now, the Bears are looking very strongly at safety HaHa Clinton-Dix, who was on the Packers starting last season and got traded to Washington mid-season before the trade deadline. And he met with the Bears last night, I believe, and he's meeting with them again today. And he's only 26. He's the same age as Amos, and he's kind of plays differently. Amos is more of a hard-hitting safety, and HaHa is more of an Eddie Jackson kind of player, more of a ball hawk.
Yeah, for sure. That's a great comparison, actually, that I was thinking about.
And they actually played together, too, at Bama. I believe 1 year they were together. Or one or 2 years they were together.
I think, 1 year.
I think 1 year. That makes sense if he was drafted in 2014. But, yeah, so definitely he is a really talented player. And if you can replace Amos with HaHa, I think you even get even better at that position. And he really is a really talented player, and if the Bears can grab him and take him away from the Redskins, are looking at him too still to re-sign him. But if the Bears can take him away from Washington and bring him to their own team, that'll look really good for the Chicago Bears. And it'll be interesting to see if they fill that slot corner role with Bryce Callahan. That might be something they have to look at in the draft again. But of course they signed Buster Skrine from the New York Jets, but they could possibly, for more depth, they could possibly go a nickel corner in the draft, or someone on the outside, possibly in the third round.
Yeah, I mean, I got to tell you, I don't think it's likely, but it would be very, very interesting. I mean, I guess it'll be kind of the inverse experience for Packers fans, but it'll be interesting if HaHa Clinton-Dix was playing for the Bears. That would be very, very. Because I feel like he's been a safety for a long time.
He's been in the league for feels like a while now.
At Green Bay, he's been a reliable player. So to see him, flip sides on the rivalry, that would be kind of interesting. Even though I think it's probably less likely that that's who the Bears pick up. But yeah, that was your scouting. As we said, make sure to keep sending in your questions. 224-544-9330. So we're going to move on to Just Wait Till Next Week, where we preview next week. And the thing that I'm excited about for next week is really the thing that everybody should be excited about next week, which is March Madness. We're going to have a bunch of exciting mini episodes with guests where we're just going to go over brackets. It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun, easy, short episodes to listen to where you're going to get all your basketball analysis from all perspectives. So we're excited for that. We've been asking you guys to email us for a while. Make sure you are doing that. Get some guests, and if you're interested in coming on the show, let us know next week, because between Selection Sunday and that first round, we're going to try to get in a bunch of shows pretty much daily here to do that. So yeah, Selection Sunday is Sunday. As we said, conference tournaments are this week. I'm hopefully going to get out to the Big Ten tournament at the UC. I'm hoping for that, but I'm excited for the selection show too, because they're reversing back to the better format this year.
I like that one
which
a
is
lot better.
Which is so much better, because last year was just so annoying to watch. But yeah. I'm excited that they're moving back to the better format. So yeah, that's what I'm looking forward to for next week.
Yeah, I'm going to the UC tomorrow night, so that'll be really fun to watch. I believe it's Purdue's playing, and then Michigan.
Michigan has the late game.
Yeah, the late game. So
I plan on
really
probably ending up out there tomorrow.
Yeah, so if you guys can definitely head on down to UC. I really recommend it. It's just great basketball for the price of one. Honestly, you get to see 2 great games for the price of one. You don't have to move out of your seat. So
yeah, and tickets are going really, really cheap right now. So it's pretty good. Friday's a great day. So yeah.
And also, next week I'll be talking more about the NFL free agency. A lot of the players, the best players that are left, like a Justin Houston, Eric Berry, they'll probably all be signed by this next episode next week when we record. So I'll dive into that. I'll probably have an article out on the Forest Scout in the coming days about the free agency recap. And there's a lot of great things to talk. We're gonna have a lot of info next week, especially with March Madness, like Joey said. So it's gonna be fun next week to dive into all of that and be ready for that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's gonna be exciting once we have all that in perspective. So looking forward to that. That's all we got today. So congratulations for sticking through and listening to this whole thing. We appreciate it as always. Make sure to subscribe to listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Breaker, Pocket Cast, RadioPublic, and Overcast. That's a new one this week, and there'll be even more in the future. We're trying to get as far of a spread as we can get. And make sure to give us a positive review there, and subscribe to watch on YouTube. We'll have this episode out this week, even though it's not available to watch, but you'll be able to listen on YouTube. We're currently 89,336-ish subscribers behind T-Series right now, so we're trying to keep independent creators alive, like us and like so many others that we love on YouTube. So so get subscribing once we get our videos out there more consistently. And of course, read the Forest Scout. There are a lot of good articles on there. Other than the articles that we mentioned, Connor Clark, as we said during the interview segment, he has a awesome conference tournament preview. He's probably going to have more coverage out there. Looking forward to that, and get ready for a legendary week of Sports Scouts next week, because it's going to be good. And in the meantime, we'll keep on scouting. I'm Joey Goodsir.
Mike Rupp.
And we will see you guys next week.